to have you all here. This session, we are going to talk about the other two skills for language skills integrations that we started last webinar, reading and writing. So before starting, I want everyone to fill in the blanks. I give you a minute to read it yourself, then tell me how do you fill in the blanks. Thank you very much, Zahra, for the name.
Yeah, sure, welcome.
So there are 4 language skills. What are they?
Reading, writing, listening, and speaking.
Okay. Which
And
ones are productive skills?
Speaking and writing are productive skills.
That means they involve
producing language.
Then receiving it as listening and
Listening and
reading.
Because through reading and listening, you receive the knowledge. Very good. So let's start with teaching reading. Good. So you have a minute, go through the sentences. Then I ask you and tell me it sounds correct to you or you think it's false. 1 minute, go through these sentences, A to F. Done? Yes? Okay. So reading is like listening, except that the input is written, not spoken. Do you think it's true or false, or do you agree or disagree?
I guess.
Okay. Okay. Anybody have any different ideas? So that's input because we say it's receptive. Yeah. What about B? Comprehension means understanding all the words in a text.
Definitely false.
Definitely false. Why, Ida? Why it is definitely false?
Because sometimes, you just understand the idea of the reading, but you don't get many words maybe. But, you get the whole idea and it's comprehension. You don't need to know all the words.
So thank you very much. So tell me, what about comprehension? What does comprehension mean to you?
I mean, it means that understanding the words behind the words. So there are, although we may understand the words, but we need to just understand the words behind the words, the context, the cultural, aspects of the language, the text that we written. So we need to understand meaning besides the culture and the context, if I'm not mistaken. So is that, as Ida said, is that necessarily understanding all of the words? But
okay.
Sometimes,
Thank you. Very good. What about comprehension? Comprehension means what? When we say comprehend something, it means what?
Understanding.
Okay. Understanding. So there are different levels for understanding. Yeah. Okay. So comprehension means you get the gist of something, main message of something. So I'm sure you have such experience. You're watching the movies or series in another language, it's French, but still, you understand, you grasp something. Either you don't understand the words, but through the gestures, body language, and even the atmosphere of the movie, you can understand what kind of movie it is. Am I right? Yes?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So the thing is, when you want to comprehend something, there are different levels. Truly understand it, or you get the gist. Okay? You receive the main message. If you want to get the gist, you don't need to know all the words. No. up to 50 or 60, or some people believe 70%. If you know the word, you understand. You understand most part of it. Definitely you get the message and the main idea. But if you need your students, to talk truly about the passage and go through lines and answer detailed questions, they need to know all the new words. But comprehension, that's correct, means it doesn't mean that you understand every word of the text. Okay, see, reading in classroom means reading aloud. What do you think?
No.
Reading in classroom means
No.
reading out loud.
Vianney, you say something? Well, what did you say? I couldn't hear you.
I didn't know that I wasn't on mute and I was just repeating the sentence. Sorry.
No, that's fine. That's fine. That's right. Guys, here's a question, since all of you has experience in teaching. Do you ask your students, or have you ever asked your students to read aloud a passage in the class?
Sometimes, but when we ask them to read aloud, they just focus on the accent and how to pronounce it, so they don't get the main idea. So I prefer to
Yeah,
ask them
I agree
to
with
read,
you.
silently.
Silent reading, yeah.
Why did you ask them to read aloud some part of it? Why you
Uh,
sometimes ask them?
just sometimes when I want to focus on, for example, some word, how to pronounce it, I ask them to read loudly. But
Thank you.
otherwise, slide silently.
Thank you. Thank you. Reading silent. Yeah, that's right. If you want to check their intonation, pronunciation, you can ask them to read aloud. Otherwise, for comprehension, they need to read to themselves. Yes, that's right. Yes, Vianney, what's your question?
Thank you. So, because you already have experience in teaching, do you recommend asking the students to read for themselves instead reading out loud?
Okay, so that's it. What's the aim? Why do you ask your students to read aloud? Sometimes, I know in Spanish, you need to check their intonation. Okay, even in all languages, actually, even in English, you want to check their intonation, pronunciation, sentence stress. Okay, so you ask them to read some few words, a few sentences, or some part of it. Okay, randomly you ask the students, because the aim is checking their pronunciation. Otherwise, for comprehension, they have to read it to themselves. And Ida actually mentioned a very good point. While you're reading something loud, you only focus on your pronunciation. So that's what that happens to me when I read something to someone, okay, or in a meeting with something, they ask me to read something loud, then they ask a question. I'll go back to the reading and read it to myself again, silently, because I didn't get the message. I would just focus on how to read it aloud. So that's the thing. For comprehension, you need to give them time to read to
Thank
them.
you.
For teaching purposes, text should be simplified. What do you think?
I think it loses its authenticity. So the students might find out some things. The authenticity is important in teaching in the English language. So I don't think the text should be simplified, but they can just find some simple text which is appropriate for that level of the students.
Yeah, it depends on the level, I guess. Sometimes simplified, definitely is better for them because they cannot understand the other parts. But if the level is, high, maybe they don't need to read like this.
Okay, so there's no should be, but if it is necessary. Basically, for comprehension, people prefer to simplify. Why they want to talk about something, or why they want to share their ideas. But there's another purpose for reading. They learn new texts, for new words, new vocabulary, or even in the structure part or grammar part. So in that case, definitely you don't simplify it. Yeah, that's right. It
So
shouldn't be simplified.
sorry. So if you ask me this sentence is true or false, what can I say in general?
Depends. It depends. It depends of the aim of the teaching. It depends. And as you mentioned, it depends on the level too. For lower level, you have to simplify. Okay, you have
But
to make it
sorry,
understandable.
I just read in one of those texts that the simplifying some of the text might make the text lose its authenticity. Well, how about that
Yeah.
one?
So that happens in academic level, but not in learning a language. You want to
So
help
for
you just help your students to learn the language. They
I
should
know.
understand it, and then they learn the new words. Okay, but at the level of academic reading, of course, what you said, 100% correct. 100% correct at that level. Yes. Or even for those classes, for example, literature classes, 100% correct. But this is just learning general language. So you help them to learn the language and to make the communication. Otherwise, they're going to be silent since it is too difficult for them. They cannot engage in any activities. You help them to learn and you help them to produce a language in this way. Okay, so reading is a good way of improving vocabulary.
Yes, correct.
Yes.
Definitely. The aim of classroom reading is the appreciation of literary texts.
No, I don't think so.
No.
So what's your idea?
Because we're going to provide some input for the students, as you said, to improve their vocabulary and to be able to comprehend the text. So first of all, comprehension and improving the vocabulary is important than appreciation of literary text. I don't think it's right. Maybe it depends on the,
It's not the aim.
level of students. Yeah.
Yes, I don't. You want to add anything else?
Yeah, exactly the same. It's not the aim.
It could be, but not. It's definitely
only
not the only aim. Yeah.
Yeah.
It could be. Thank you very much. Thanks a lot. Okay, we have two kinds of reading in your classes. Okay, as teachers, we have two kinds of reading: extensive reading and intensive reading. Anybody knows what's the difference between extensive reading and
First.
intensive reading?
Sorry, before we go, when I was reading, for the midterm, all of reading, writing, speaking, listening, they all have intensive and extensive.
Only receptive
For
skills
listening.
have
For listening, we have.
receptive. Yes, receptive skills. Reading and listening, they have extensive and intensive.
Oh.
Receptive skills. Yeah.
So the meaning, that those words are into parentheses show the meaning of the extensive reading and intensive reading. So
First, I
reading-
want to. So, what's your definition? Go ahead. Yes.
for the extensive reading.
Yes. And what's the difference? Extensive and intensive. What's the difference?
So for the extensive reading, the aim of the reading is just for pleasure and for their own interest to just read the text. For intensive reading, they're just looking for some of the information, some of the details in the text to answer or to fill out the blank, for example. So they're just looking for the purpose in intensive reading, but in extensive reading, they just read in order to improve their vocabulary, but they are not going to there are no specific reason or purposes for that text that they're reading. So, but they, in order to just improve their, vocabulary, they can just read that for pleasure and for the enjoyment themselves. That's
Okay.
my.
Thank you. Thank you very much. What were the others? Anyone else? Extensive and intensive reading. What's
I
the
remember
difference?
last time you said extensive, extra, so it's more than just the text. It's just for fun and to enjoy. So I think it's the same for listening and reading. Extra.
Okay.
And other things.
Class. Yes. Yes, that's right. Thank you very much. Miane, do you want to add anything?
No, I just the word, for example, intensive can be related to intention. So you have the intention of reading X content.
Oh, that's nice. This is the first time I heard it. It works.
Good.
It works. It works. You have an intention of learning the language.
Nice.
Oh, interesting. Interesting. Okay. Both works on comprehension. Since both of them raised exposure to the language, so help the students to learn the language. But what's the difference? Intensive reading are the reading which are chosen based on the aim of the course. So the aim of the course is at the end of the course, students should be able to use different conditionals, all tenses, correct. They should have learned to use correctly the articles and blah, 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 blah. So all the readings which are provided for the students are around the aim of the course. So it's not only comprehension, also the linguistic part. So in intensive, you have two aims. Number one, checking their comprehension. Number two, they have to learn the linguistic parts. Linguistic parts means vocabulary, structure, and definitely you check their pronunciation, intonation, and then they need to give you the summary in some levels. They have to write something about it. So they have different precise activities to do to improve the level of their knowledge. But in extensive, you want your student to have more exposure to the language. You look for something that they are interested in. They love sport. So you find bio of some athletes, football players or basketball players. You find their bio and share it with them. Since they love that sport, they go through it and they read it. They love celebrities, so you share some news about celebrities with your students, since you know them, you know their interests. So they go through the text and they really to find out what happened to, nowadays Shakira is on the news, on the top news. So what happened to Shakira? They read the news because they like celebrities. So in this way, you motivate your students to read the language. Then they come to the class. You never ask for the words. You never ask, how did you pronounce this or that? But it's that, how did you like the text? And they got excited and said, oh my God, I didn't know she had a new song. That part was interesting. So they start to talk about it. So it's based on joy. They like it. I mentioned this because we never force our student, okay, for your extensive reading, you have to read this storybook. No. It's based on pleasure. You need to find something that they like. If I force to read this storybook, which I don't like the title, I don't like the theme, I don't like anything about this story. So it's not learning. Still, you couldn't motivate your student for learning the language. Okay, am I clear?
Yeah, so
Yes.
here in this extensive part, there is no linguistic aim.
No, there is no. You don't work on the new vocabulary. You don't work on a certain, you just work on their comprehension. That definitely the text that you share with your student, it should be at their level. It shouldn't be more difficult. Even it's a bit easier, it's better because they have more opportunity to talk about it. But if it is very difficult, they have to look up 100 words, so they get bored and tired and furious, you know? So it
It
should
is
be
just like a
easier.
regular conversation.
What do you mean just regular?
Like if you are talking about celebrities, they read an article about that, and then you asked, what do you think about the article that you read? And then they will give you their opinion.
Yes. When they come to the class, you can run the conversation about that during tutorial, of course. Whatever, you know, the thing is, whatever you give your students to read or listen or study, then you need to get the feedback. It's not just one way. Okay, you post it or email it to your student and no follow-ups. So again, no learning happens. You know what I'm saying? So you need to get the feedback. So that's why when they come back next session, they come to the class, you're going to speak about it and say, okay, did you like it? Which part was interesting? Was it really new to you? What's your idea? And you show you're enthusiastic, you know? I like it too. I like it too.
Sorry, so there's no testing or there's no evaluation for the students' comprehension or
For
except the
extensive.
talking for extensive. So there is no kind of linguistic test on the
No
extensive reading
electricity
there.
test. No. Maybe you ask them to send their ideas, okay? So in written form.
Yeah,
But
that's good.
it's all just like communication. No
Mhm.
evaluation. No strict evaluation. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
In the listening is also the same in
The listening is the same.
extensive.
The listening. So basically extensive means you enjoy it.
Okay.
You know, you enjoy it. So it's just for pleasure. Something that's interesting to you.
It should
Okay.
be done at the upper level, like
Even lower level, like I mean, you can use graded storybooks, even for lower levels, you can use that. You can find many texts or articles which are good for elementary students.
yeah.
Yeah, at all levels you can find it. And it's at their own speed. So that's why it doesn't happen in the class. It usually happens out of the class. Some people read, I mean, very fast, but some people need time to read. So it's at their own speed. But in intensive, which is also silent reading, it occurs in the class, and they have to answer to the questions. They have to do different exercises, and you need to practice with your students. You have to teach them the linguistic part, the vocabulary. They have to study the grammar, expressions, everything. And you get the feedback, and your student needs to use those vocabulary, grammar, and the rest. You know, for each level, we have active words and passive words. Anybody knows what's the difference between active words and passive words?
Active word and passive words.
Yeah, for each level, we have active words and passive words.
Maybe actives are the ones they know the meaning. I don't know, I'm just guessing. And they use it, maybe.
The second part is correct. You know, when you're a student in one level, even advanced, definitely they wouldn't learn all the new words. They understand many words. I mean, each one, even I myself, when I listen to the news or when I read even very difficult articles, I could understand. And I know, and I could even guess the meaning of the words, but necessarily I don't use all of
Is
them.
using.
So the words that you understand it, even you can guess the meaning, are passive words. Necessarily here, you understand them, but you don't use them. They're not active for you. So for the level intermediate, in your teacher's guide, if you teach the coursework, in teacher's guide it mentioned these are the active words. And if you prepare material for your students, according to the level and the topic that you are, which is the target language of the session, you need your students to learn some words and expressions to use it in the class. They are active part of the reading. Okay? So in intensive reading, for the linguistic part, you explain if they have difficulties to comprehend or understand, you explain it, and you teach some new words. You teach some new words, and you review the grammar part because you want your student to use these new words and this grammar when you get the feedback. And when you want to have an assessment, you assess those new words, which are active words of that reading, not all the words in the reading, because it's impossible. There are 20 new words. How is it possible? They learn all the 20s, but they can learn 7 of them and they can use those 7. You get it? Do I make sense? Yes? Good. Reading help our students a lot to be a good writer. Like those people who listens a lot, they speak better. And those people who read a lot, they can write better. One of the points in English language is discourse markers and connecting words, connecting sentences that help the students to sound more natives or natural. So this is a part I put it here in my PowerPoint because I believe it's very, very, very necessary and essential to give attention while you're teaching reading. Ask them to circle the words that connect the words or connect the paragraphs. So it makes it much easier for students to write later. They understand how words connect or how sentences connect to each other. Otherwise, they're like the leaves of the tree. There are a bunch of sentences, but they are not connected. Discourse markers is important. One of the important grammar points in reading.
Sorry, it is a question.
Yes, please.
I didn't. I wasn't listening. Sorry, I was writing.
Oh, okay. So we have different readings like academic reading, communicative, so emails or messages, text, there are like communicative kinds of reading, but also we have some academic reading. And we talk about reading out loud that if the purpose is checking their pronunciation, that's fine. But if you want to check their comprehension, they have to read silently. They have to read silently. Okay, when they are reading something, like academic reading, one point is pay attention to the structure and also the layout. Which part is introduction? What is the main point or main body? And what about the conclusion? Reading is a great sample for writing. So in intensive reading, it's not only just working on vocabulary and grammar, also how the text develop to work with your students. So how does it start? Look at the introduction part. What's it talking about? How is it related to the title? And what's the role of the main body? Okay, where can you find the main points? Where is it? How is it developed? What is the topic sentence in this paragraph? Or what's the main message in this paragraph? And how it's supported. Okay? So the student pay attention how a text developed. How is it possible to write about something? They can find it out when they analyze the reading, And what is the last paragraph? Read the last paragraph and tell me how is it connected to the other paragraphs? And what's the difference between the last paragraph and the first? What's the difference between the conclusion and introduction? How they are similar, how they are different. So in intensive reading, we also pay attention to the layout of the writing, of the reading, of the reading. Okay? Good. Back to our teaching. Back to our teaching in process, pre, while, post. So now you can tell me, what's the difference between these 3 stages? So what about pre-task activity? What is it, pre-task activity? Any ideas?
Yeah, how I think before, reading, we can make them, be familiar with the new words or talk about the idea a little bit so they are prepared before they start reading the text.
Or also, for example, if you are planning to talk about the weather for the next class, you just say, please, for homework, read a little bit about the weather, and we are going to discuss that in next class. And they have an idea behind that.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, so as you said, pre means prepare your students for the new lesson, okay? For the new reading. Let's focus on reading. You want to teach reading. Since you know your students and you know I have to teach this reading text because it's very related to the target of the course, okay? But I know my students don't know anything about Japan, and the text is about Japan history. So what you're going to do, you can ask them to Google it. For next time, we are going to read about the history of Japan. I want you to Google and find out something interesting. 2, you can find a short video and share it with your students about Japan. You can email some pictures to your students, and I want you to and ask them, okay, look at these pictures. Let's see if you can find where can you find these pictures, or where are these, or what places are there, and this kind of questions. So they become curious, they Google and find out, oh, that's Japan, or maybe they make a guess it's in I don't know, in Portugal. And you email, no, that's wrong, it's in Asia. So you motivate your students to search and surf the internet to find out. So you prepare your students for the text. But then they get to the class. For pre-task, number 1, we need to put our students in the context. We never jump into the class, hi, how are you doing? Open your books, let's read. No, it's very difficult. It's very difficult to understand. When you want to start to talk about the subject, first you need to prepare your audience for that subject. So you have to put them in the context. How do you put them in the context? They need to have engagement, but they don't know anything about the new context. So I start with elicitations, activate their background knowledge. So something related to the title. I can start to ask them about the history of their own country. What do you know about the history of your country? Or what do you know about the tourist centers in your country? It depends what's the text about. If it is talking about the main problems of big cities, so you can start to ask, okay, where do you live? Do you live in a small town or big cities? Do you have any problems in your big cities? What are the main problems in your city? They can talk about their own. They can talk about their own. So they say, for example, air pollution, traffic, or lack of facilities and these things. So you activate their background knowledge. This is what they know, but you want to make a connection between what they know with the new lesson. Then, to understand the text, they should know the words. But do you teach all the new words?
Keywords.
Bravo. We teach the keywords. So, Ida, can you tell me what you mean by keywords?
Keywords are the words that if you don't know the meaning, you cannot understand the text. So maybe in a text, just 2 or 3 words maybe are just keywords.
That's right. That's right. There are a few words that they carry the main message of the text. So we need to pre-teach the keywords. We need to pre-teach the keywords to help our student to understand the text. So now they know the context, they have the keywords, so it's the time to comprehend. You give them a chance to read it to themselves. You ask them just to skim it. So we have two words in teaching reading. It's skimming the reading and scanning the reading. What's the difference, guys? Any ideas?
Yeah, skim is just reading for the whole idea, but
Mhm.
scan is just for the specific parts to find, something. But skim is, generally just take a look.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So skimming is that part we say get the gist of the reading. So skimming is like, can you give me an example before I say that? Can you give me an example of skimming a text in our real life? When you
Sorry?
skim something.
Okay. I didn't get the question, sorry.
When do you skim a text in your real life?
Oh, when I talk about something in general, not
No,
specifically.
it's a pleasure, but just for reading. Um,
Um,
yeah, yes, Fiona, please.
Thank you. I'm not really sure if I'm correct or not, but does it apply? Let's say that I will do an essay, but for my
Mhm.
essay, I have to look for research. I have to do research. Is that a skinny? Like just read the content and then work in the essay after?
What do you think, Ida? Is that skimming?
I'm not
Um,
sure, maybe not.
I don't
Okay,
know.
fine.
I just thought about it.
So why do you read it? You read that text, for example. You read this text to understand it's related to your research or not. Am I right? Yes? Okay. So
It is.
you have to truly understand it. Otherwise, how could you decide it is related to your subject or not? So you have to scan it. Scan means go through the details. But when you read newspaper from the very beginning, or when you read magazine, do you scan? Do you read from the beginning to the end? What do you do?
We skim. Just,
Skim. Yeah.
yeah.
You just look at the headlines and maybe look at the introduction part. If you're interested, you go through it. If not, you just pass it. Am I right? That is a skimming. That's a skimming. You want to buy medicine like this. Yesterday, I wanted to find something. So I had many choices. I have to read it truly, the instructions and indications and composition to decide which one to buy. So did I scan or skim?
Yeah.
Scan. I scan it. Okay. But when I want to buy this book, there were different small books. I was, you know what? Many times I'm on subway or bus, and sometimes I know what to do. So I was thinking maybe I have a, light book with myself. So I was looking at it. Did I go through all the story in the store? Did I have time to look at all of them? No, I just
Skim.
skimmed. I look at the title. I go through some of the pages very quickly and say, oh, I like this one. I took it. That is a skimming. Okay? Is that clear?
Actually, I never understood the whole idea of skimming and scanning. Thank you.
Sure, sure.
Thank you.
Good to get it. So you give your student a chance to go through it. They know the keywords. They know the keywords. So they can grasp the idea. So you give them a chance to go through the text, skim the text, and get the gist, just comprehension. What's the message? But there's a rule in teaching. All activities have an aim. Okay? They have aims. So what is the aim of skimming? General comprehension questions. So you need to tell your student. So you put it on the board or on the platform that you're working in your online classes, you put it on the board in your online platform. And so I want you to skim it and answer to these three questions: where it happened, who were there, and how it happened. Very general questions. It's not like go through it, then I ask you questions. You need to help your students to concentrate. So while they're skimming, they're looking for the people who were involved, they're looking for the place that happened, or they were looking what was the result. So you help your students to understand, to comprehend better. Okay? That is for skimming. Then what? We get to, now we are in wild task activity. It's a time to practice. So my students need time to go through it because I want to work on linguistic parts. I give them time in pairs to go through it and answer to the detailed questions or fill in the blanks while they're studying. In lower classes, like elementary and pre-intermediate, they definitely have problems for reading, and I mean, in a matter of pronunciation and intonation. So you need to prepare audio. Then it's a time after skimming and get the gist. It's a time to listen to that audio and they hear the correct pronunciation and the correct intonation of the text, because there are elementary and pre-intermediate or even beginners. They don't know how to pronounce it. So then listen to it. Then listen to it once, and then you give them time to digest. I said to digest. This is my word, by the way, because I need time to understand it. Put them in pairs or groups, give them time, they go through it, they read the exercises. It's a time you monitor and ask if they have any further questions. Maybe there are some other words they don't understand it, so you need to explain to them. Some students Google, but some students ask. So you are there, you help them 100%. Maybe there are some structures they have problem. If they don't ask you any question, it's your job. You ask them, okay guys, what about this sentence? It said, if I were in that island, I would do this. So why it said if I were? And they said, oh, this is second conditional. Thank you. So who can tell me about second conditional? You know, you ask them. You just check with your students that they truly understand it. You know what I'm saying? If your students don't ask, you will check with them. So you give them time. They study together. You monitor them. We get to post. So what is the aim of the post part? Post activity part?
Make sure they get the idea.
So how could you make sure?
If they write, for example, a short essay about that or talk about that story, we know that they understand.
By asking questions.
Yeah, asking questions, good.
It's a time that you get there's a word that starts with F. You get the
feedback.
Bravo. It's a time you get the feedback. So the aim was comprehension. Number 2, there are 7 words, which are active words that I want my student use it. And there's a structured second conditional that I want my student use that. So it's a part that you check those active words and the structure. So I'm going to ask them, so which word do you like? And when they start to talk about it, I refer to the words. The words are on the board. So I refer to the words. I want you to use this. This is the way that you get the feedback. So I want you imagine yourself in Japan. When you say I want you imagine yourself, they have to use second conditional. So I want you yourself imagine in Japan. What would you do if you were in Tokyo? So they have to use the structure. The post part, when you get the feedback, you need to review the target parts that you really want your students to learn. Okay? Then you check with the students, done. It's a part for homework. It's a part for homework. It depends on you. You can ask them to write something or share another reading with them at the same level of difficulty, or you can ask them to find something similar in their hometown and send it to you. So something related to that reading. Is that clear to all of you?
Yep.
Good.
Sorry, Zahra just sent me a message. She said, actually, she was talking about her VPN, but she said now,
Even that with VPN doesn't
yeah,
work.
she jinxed
Oh
it,
my
I guess.
goodness.
Yeah, she said it's not working, and she asked me to ask you, can you send her PPT? What is PPT?
The PowerPoint, we are not allowed to. I'm very sorry, but
All right.
yeah, this is for
What is that?
TESOL.
Sorry, I don't know what is PPT.
PowerPoint.
Oh, PowerPoint. All right.
Okay.
have
Just please, yes.
I think she can watch the video
Yeah,
later.
please ask her to check the YouTube because this is all for TESOL and it's not for myself. I made it myself, but since I share it with the TESOL, so they said never share it with them. I'm very
Thank
sorry.
you.
I do
No, it's
understand. I do understand her situation, but I cannot directly send it. Maybe she sent an email to TESOL and just explain the situation. In
I will
that
tell her.
case, they could share it, but it's, I mean,
Okay,
out
thank you.
of my authority. Yes, Vianney, please.
Thank you. Is it recommended to leave homework for the students at the end of every single class?
That's for sure. Sure.
Okay.
Single class. You know what's the aim of homework? What's the aim of homework? It means what I learned in the class, I need to practice at home. Otherwise, I will forget it. I will forget it. Just, let me tell you an example for myself. When I was in Spain, I was in Alicante for 3 months. And I'm telling you, I could Spanish, not very fluently, but I could handle many things. But now, 10% I can remember
Oh,
because there was no practice.
yeah.
That's what happened. That's what happened. So for single class, each session, you give them homework. And then after three session, flashback. You give them homework which refers to three previous sessions. So they need to review again, because they're all new to them. They need to practice a lot. Otherwise, they will forget that. Even why you make it difficult. When you immigrate to another country, you speak another language. You can see in some people, they cannot even, after a while, they think to remember the word in their mother tongue. That's the thing of practice. Yeah. So yeah, homework. So guys, what's the difference between bottom up and top down process? What is it? What's the
Talked
difference?
about it last time.
Yeah, we did. Bottom up is working. Which one is working on comprehension? Which one is working on linguistic part?
Comprehension, top down.
Exactly. So all the activities that we were talking about comprehension, that's top-down process. The part that we talk about, linguistic part, like fill in the blanks, like rewrite the sentence, use this structure and write a paragraph, these are bottom up. I guess I prepare, yes, give me a sec.
Can you please say that once more time between
Yes,
top
yes,
down
I
and
will.
bottom up? Thank you.
Yes, let me put it here. So top down is working as a process that you practice their comprehension. Okay? Ask general comprehension questions. Decide whether the sentences are true or false. So they need to comprehend the text. I'm sorry. They need to comprehend the text to answer to the question, to decide whether the sentences are true or false. This is top-down process. Bottom-up process is a part that you work on new vocabulary, new structure, check their pronunciation, check their intonation, mostly the linguistic aspect. Okay? Good. So I was So when you focus on thought, when you focus on the context, when you ask them to decide whether the sentences are true or related or not related to the text, is it top down or bottom up? Which one? Top down. Bravo. When you ask them to fill in the blanks, okay? Fill in the blanks, rewrite the sentence, or you give them a word and it's ask them to to say the sentence with the new word. Is it top down or bottom up?
Button up.
Exactly. Exactly. So here the labels for different parts and order the pictures or order paragraphs. It's again top down or bottom up.
Order the pictures.
According to the text.
Probably top down.
Yes, according to the text. So they need to comprehend the text to
Yeah.
order the picture. Okay. Good. Now we talk about different, yes, we talk about different kinds of reading. We talk about scheming and scanning. There is another way of teaching reading, which we call it jigsaw reading. Okay, jigsaw reading. Jigsaw reading is for the reading which consists of different paragraphs. They're all about one title, but the paragraphs are not exactly related to each other. For example, look here. What does your hairstyle? What does your hairstyle mean? So the first one is about ancient Egypt. The second one, hairstyle in Japan. The third one, a hairstyle in Africa. And the fourth, Europe in 1700s. So all are related to the title, but the paragraphs can study separately. Yes? That's jigsaw reading. So what you do is you have 3 paragraphs or you have 4 paragraphs. You put your students in 4 groups. Group A, B, C, D. Each group study 1 paragraph, skim 1 paragraph. Okay? Then at the very beginning, they have a time for skimming to go to the whole and understand, oh, this is about Egypt, this is about Europe, this is about Africa, and that's about Asia, for example. So they have the idea for the whole. Then each group study 1 paragraph, A, B, C, D. What happened next? You say, okay, one student from group A, one student from group B, one student from group C, and one student from group D. You 4, they would be expert group. They come to group one group, the other one comes to the other, and so they're going to be in different groups, and they start to talk about it. So A said paragraph A was about this, paragraph B was about this, paragraph C was about this, and paragraph D was about this. And they start talking and asking questions. This happens for higher levels, intermediate, upper level, and advanced level, because they are at the level that they can use the language more fluently. But for lower level, vice versa. For lower level, vice versa. The first 4 group, A, B, C, D, the first group, they go through the text, they understand the text, but they need to study more. They are at the level of pre-intermediate or elementary. They need time to study more. Then from their group, they come to expert group. So there are 4 A's, 4 B, 4 C, 4 D. The first group, the 4, only they study paragraph A. Second group, only study paragraph B. Third group, only study paragraph C. And fourth group, only study paragraph D. They look up the new words, they study about the structure, you help them as a teacher, so they truly understand each paragraph. Now's the time to mix up. The back to the first, again, A, B, C, D. Now A, because they study in that expert group, they can talk about paragraph A and explain it to them. B, talk about paragraph B. C, talk about paragraph C. And D, talk about paragraph C. The good thing about this activity or this method of teaching is your students become independent and they try to understand and explain to the others. Okay? So you got it? Jigsaw reading.
We call it jigsaw reading.
Yes, jigsaw with J. Yeah. Any questions so far? Teaching writing. So it's the time for teaching writing. Guys, do you know why usually the writing part, most of the course books, are at the end of the unit? Why is that? Do you have any ideas?
Because you need to know everything about everything, grammar, new words, everything. So, you know, just sum up and write. So it's
I think it's
yeah.
the most difficult part.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
right. That's right. I do.
And hard.
I do.
Yeah, hard.
Even in your mother tongue, sometimes it's hard to write. Right. So, as you said, which is 100% correct, they need to learn and practice the words. They need to learn and practice the grammar. They have to communicate firstly, orally. They need to communicate. And then they become accurate and fluent, you know? They get the prompt from you, they get the corrections from the teachers. Then they need to study the sample and the reading, because when you want to learn something, you need samples. So they need the sample of reading. Now's the time to put it on the paper and start writing, which I do agree is difficult for your students. So what we need to do is we need to motivate our student to write. First of all, tell me, what are different types of writing in your classes?
Different kinds of writing.
What are different types of writing in your class?
Again, communicative and academic, maybe.
Yeah,
No.
that's right. That's right. It's also copying, gap filling, reordering, substitution, creative writing. There are all kinds of writing, yes? So maybe it's just imitative writing, like copying something. Control writing, like fill in the blanks, fill in the blanks. Or complete the second part of the sentence. Self-writing, they write something about themselves, okay, or for themselves. They write an essay or postcard, an email. They write some true things about their school, okay, or their ideas about their city. Academic writing, as you said, like paper writing. Vocational, like filling the form or writing resume or CV. Even personal text. They're all different types of writing. Yeah. So, but what you need to practice in writing? Spelling, also forming the layout, okay? Writing legibly, so the way that you send the text even to your teacher is different from your close friends, of course. What about writing an email? Or the way that you write an email and request something is different from thanking someone, okay, or for something. Punctuation, which is a very difficult part in writing. Many people can develop the subject, but they don't know where to put commas, period, you know, semicolon, this thing. And also write vocabulary. Just looking up the words from the dictionary is not enough. You look it up, but then you have choices of 5 different vocabulary. So which one I should use here? So your students need to learn the usage of the word first. Where to use this vocabulary? What's the proper word for here? And grammar also for our writing is important. And how to join. Do you remember I said in your reading, always ask your students to circle the linkers.
Like
Don't say
however,
divide.
therefore,
That's
wherever.
it. Yes. How to join sentences and how to join paragraphs. And also how paragraphs comes after each other. Introduction is different from main body. Conclusion is different from introduction. Like essay writing. And how many, even sometimes you need to talk to them, how many sentences for conclusion? You know, what we do in IELTS classes, we say, okay, only 5 or 6 sentences at most for conclusion. Conclusion shouldn't be too long because you only need 250 words. So sometimes even it happens. Okay, how many sentences in a paragraph and how to put the main aim in the paragraph. Oh, I get a message that Zahra is here, but the speed is very low. I'm sorry, Zahra, but that's good you are here. This is an example. I want to show you some example for copying like. You can give them that kind of paragraph and ask them to correct it. So I went to my friend's place yesterday. That's wrong. They have to write I in capital. After yesterday, they need to put period, full stop. Beginning of the sentence, capital. So her name is capital. It should be capital. The first one is also just imitating. Imitate the sentence. Do you know what's the aim of the first one? I want to go home. What's the aim of this writing?
Grammar?
No, they just copy. They just copy.
Okay.
So what is it?
Not to write, all together. So I space, 1 space, 2
Bravo, bravo. That's one problem. The words that stick together, you cannot read it. That's right.
Yeah. Especially kids, I guess.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. So
Ada, can you please repeat that for me? I didn't get it.
Sometimes they don't care about space between the words. Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
So I space. Even you can ask them to make a spaceman. You know that cartoon Spaceman? So they said, okay, I want you to make your spaceman and put it in between the words. So I space 1 space 2. Yeah, that's right. Okay, or here's another example. So rewrite it. They understand how to start the sentence with capital and space between the word. This is another example. Even how to work under spelling. Okay, spelling. So you can ask them to unscramble the words. Okay, so we can work under correct spelling. Fill in the blanks and working on the grammar. So put the verb in the correct form. Okay, put the verb in the correct form. This is the part that they have to comprehend the text and understand. Is it in continuous form or simple form? And what tense is it? So you're working on grammar part. You can ask them to write a paragraph, start to write a paragraph, but help them, the big sentences for lower level, help them with the words. It's always more difficult to teach to lower level than to higher level, of course. So when you teach to the lower level, you need to help them a lot. Give them the keywords and ask them to write. And they have the picture also. Then just make it more challenging. Here, write the story. What happened in Simpson family last week? So last week is all in the past. What happens in George family every Saturday? So it's present. Okay. So they write the story. Even you can make it more challenging. What would you do if you were in Georgia family? So you make it conditional, you know? Even you can ask them to draw something for children classes or maybe teens. Even for adults, some of these activities, it's fun for adults too. I want you to draw something for your friend and email it. Take a picture, email it to her or him. And who's going to draw for who? And for example, Ali said, I'm going to draw something and send it to Lorenzo. And Dennis said, I want to draw something and send it to Maria. And so, okay, this is the email. Do it for the next time. And they draw something. What I want you to do is you're going to share the drawing and your paragraph with me. So the other person needs to describe the picture and also add 2 sentences. What's your feeling about that picture? So encourage, it's fun. You encourage them to write. You can be very creative. Even you can help them with the words, but they don't know how to put the paragraphs. And they say, I don't know what to write about. How was your last vacation? It was fun. Finish. I don't know what to write. So give them hints. Okay? So I want you to write about the place. You can explain the place in 1 paragraph. You can talk about climate. You can talk about the time, which season, which month, and how long was it? Who were there with you? Did you go with your family, with your friends, and all by yourself it was a business trip or something? Quality, how was it? So you give them hints to write. Even you can ask them, I want you to talk about your favorite room in your house, or what do you have in your favorite room? Not just describe your bedroom. So they copy. I have a bed, desk, table, lamp, and these things. But when you say, I want you to talk about your favorite room in your house. So maybe they love the kitchen because the fridge is there. It happens. Okay. So then he said, why don't you share your favorite room with us so we can see your room and read your description? Those are all different kind of activities you can motivate your students to write. But for academic, there's a process. There's a process. Pre-white post. So in pre-writing, first you have brainstorming, put your students in the context. They have idea about the title. You can put them in the groups, even they can write together in a group. So in the group they discuss, they write all the ideas. It's a time to go through the ideas and formulate the ideas. Which ones are really related, which ones are not very related. So they sort their ideas and they write the first draft. They revise it. It's a time that you can even ask them to swap the writing, the first draft. So they write it together or even individually. He or she writes, then swap it with a friend and say, I want you to read it and give me your idea. Is it understandable? Does it make sense? So the student can give comments to each other and help each other to improve their writing and edit it. They have time to edit. Then they publish the final draft and hand it to the teacher. For teaching writing, believe me, you need at least 40 minutes. At least 40 minutes. If you want to happen, once they need to write in the class, because they need your help. You need to monitor them. You need to give them hints and prompts to write. They need to write in groups, just support each other. If you give them a title, you teach them and give them a title to write at home, for the beginning, it's very difficult. That's why they don't do it. They don't write it. Let's happen 1 or 2 times in the class with the help of the teachers and other students. But what happened? But what happened when they give you the final draft? So what do you think? What's the next step? What you gonna do to teach them? So how you gonna correct it? This is very important. How you gonna correct it?
Writing grammatically, and structurally. So we need to revise them by detail, more detail compared with the, I mean, early stage. But it is time that we need to just correct them more to help them revise their text or writing.
Thank you very much. It definitely happens, but still, I want my students get the responsibility for studying, and I want to give them chance to rethink. Usually it happens, especially not at the level of university, but especially for lower levels in language schools or in private classes. When you correct something, students just look at the mark, and they put it away. But I want my students study this. So I'm going to give them codes. So I underline the mistakes. I give them codes. I put WW, which means wrong word, WO, word order, there's mistakes in word order, WV, wrong verb, P, punctuation is wrong, prep, preposition is wrong. I don't understand this part. Meaning is unclear. Rewrite it. Tense is wrong. Something is missing. Vocabulary is not proper, or anything. But we just correcting based on the aim of the writing. I never correct everything. Otherwise, it's full of mistakes. I ruin their self-confidence. So I just say, okay, I go through it, but this time I only check punctuation and grammar parts. So only I check punctuation and grammar parts. Never correct all the things. They're gonna lose their self-esteem and say, oh, I cannot write. Okay. Yes.
But will that maybe be a repercussion? Like, let's say that you select the mistakes, and then for the following activity, they will still having the exact same mistakes than before instead of getting better. Like from my perspective, I don't mind having a lot of red things in my description. Then I know what I have to change for the future.
So coding helps a lot. When you give them codes, they have to study why the word is wrong, why the vocabulary is wrong, or what's the problem with the tense. So you give them chance to think. So give them codes like this. Different codes. You can make codes for yourself, but your students should understand what does that code mean. Okay, share with your students. I find different codes. So there's one for British Council, there's one codes of writing. So it depends on you. When you give them codes, you give them chance to think. So I want you to rewrite it based on my codes, writing codes, rewrite it and it again for next session. They have second chance to learn. Then they give it back to you and you have your final correction. If still you believe that there are some mistakes, it's a time to practice more. So give them more samples. You need to practice on the grammar. Give them more grammar practices or exercises. They still have problem in punctuation. Give them reading. Ask them to circle the different punctuation. So we need to practice. Okay, is that clear, everyone?
I have a question. I wonder if just in the final stage we do this coding for the students, or we're going to just help them in the early stage of their writing to help them write better. That's
you're talking about the process, or you're talking about the level?
Yeah, because there are different stages of their writing for the for the students, right? And then if it is final stage, isn't it a little bit too late just to do this coding?
No, I mean,
Or
in
we
the
can do it
process
in the
of,
middle of,
I don't get your question. In the different levels you're
I mean,
talking, or in the process of
yeah.
teaching? Which one?
You said that this is going to be done in the final stage of their writing, and finally that they have written all of the the text, and we're going to just do this coding for them to just help them think about their problems or their
Zahra, I guess you missed the first part. I think you were not in the class.
Yes.
So yeah, I
That's
know,
part
I
of the-
know.
Yeah,
I'm
sorry.
very happy you are here. Believe me, I'm very happy you are here. But I know you missed the first part.
Yeah, I didn't want to give up. Sorry. Yeah.
No, why should you? Why should you? Thank you for asking. So the process goes between pre, while, post. So in pre, they have brainstorming and they were
Yeah,
talking.
I know all of them.
And then they start to
Yeah.
write the first draft. The first draft, they swap it with a friend. So here is one chance for checking, and the teacher is monitoring. So you are there and help them. You go through it, you give them prompts, you help them. So friend and the teacher both in while stage, you help them with their writing. And then it's a time for final draft. When they hand in your final draft, again, you give them a chance. You give them codes and said, okay, back to the code.
Got it.
And think about it. So you give them a chance to think about it. Then you have your final correction. Thank you for asking. That was good. Guys, here I have some sample for homework. You can give them picture also. The biggest shopping mall in the world. Based on the target of the class, which grammar or which vocabulary you want them to use, you ask them to write it for their homework. Do you know where is it? Do you know where is the biggest shopping mall in the world?
I think it's in Dubai. Dubai Mall.
That's a very big aquarium. Yeah, that's right. Or you can give them a picture. Do you remember that cartoon? There was a zebra, elephant, lion.
Madagascar.
Yeah.
Madagascar.
Oh my God, that was my favorite cartoon, and it still is. So it is creative. It's a creative writing. So you give them a picture, even you give them some hints for writing. And say, okay, they escaped from the zoo and they are in New York City. Write the story. And that's fun. That's fun. And the whole thing is just make it fun for your students. Here in this app, Pinterest, there are wonderful ideas and different worksheets for different levels for writing that you can find. Pinterest. And it's free, by the way. It's free. Some parts, I mean, just few of them you need to pay. Otherwise, it's free. So for your lesson planning, what we were talking goes to process. You have the background and the process part. What we are talking today and the previous session, it was all for the process, pre, while, post. Okay? But you know that you have to put the title, number of the students, level of the students, age of the students, their interest, time, how do you start it, what is the terminal objective, what's enabling objective. Then you start the process, which is right here, pre, while, post. Good? So far you know how to, thank you. So far, you know how to practice reading, writing, listening, and speaking in your classes. Guys, I guess we have 2 minutes. If you have any questions, go ahead, please.
I have